Hey everybody, Kenny here. In this video, I want to go over my medic builds in the game Stranger of Sword City. As with all of my Stranger of Sword City builds, this is not the name of the class, it is the name of the build that I put together, the combination of classes. As with all my builds, I suggest first leveling to level 30 as a cleric, assuming you were to choose cleric as your starting point, which personally I do recommend cleric as the starting point for this build, because when you switch from one class to another, then back to a class that you've already leveled up in, you will still have access to all of the features that you had unlocked the last time you were in that class, with the exception of skill token, assuming that when you performed your class change, you were below the required level in order to attain the skill token. But by going up to level 30 as a cleric, which, to be clear, I chose level 30 for all my builds, specifically because of the fact that the cleric needs to go all the way to level 30 in order to get all of its features and spells. All of its skills and spells don't unlock until level 30. And while cleric is the most important class to discuss for the medic build, I'm going to hold off until later to bring up why. So for now, we're going to move on to our second class, which is level 27 wizard. And the reason for going up to level 27 wizard is both to get access to all of the buffs available to the wizard, but also to gain the master casting feature, which will be used for essentially the same reasons that we use it in our red mage build, so that we can multi-buff our entire party in those situations where consuming our MP for that purpose has the best value. We also take a skill for being able to cast wizard spells like a wizard. So even though cleric is a casted class, if you were to use a wizard spell as a cleric without having this passive, then the spells would be very ineffective. Same goes for the wizard. If you want your wizard to heal effectively, then they need to have the cleric version of this passive. For this reason, wizard has large bulk of the skill slots for this build. However, the only slots we need for the other classes make that work out just fine. So after wizard, we go into knight, level 21. From knight, we want to take defensive training. This gets us a better defensive bonus as our final medic. But primarily, it is the only defensive option we really have here. The reason to go to 21 is actually to get secret defense, but I found that I couldn't tell if there was overlap between Holy Soul and secret defense, so I had taken it off for the purpose of determining whether or not it made a difference. And I couldn't really determine that having secret defense along with Holy Soul had more value than just having Holy Soul. That's the reason for that. After knight, we go into dancer. And while we don't use any of the stuff that you see my other builds using from dancer, we do use the trick skills, which I haven't discussed before. And what the trick skills do is they allow you to use items multiple times. Now that is not to say they allow you to use multiple items, because they do not. That's not how the skill works. Trick 1, trick 2, whatever item you pick, it will take that item and use it that many times. So you couldn't go and decide, oh, I want to use trick 2 to use a pointy powder on each of my knocked out characters. You would have to still revive them one at a time. Well, I would prefer to be able to do it in the way where you could pick what item you character use for each use. What we do get here is almost as valuable because of the way that magic items work in Stranger of Sword City. Well, in Stranger of Sword City, there are various weapons and accessories that function very much the same way that wands and rods did back in the SNES era of Final Fantasy games. When you could, go into the item menu and press up, and you pick your holy rod, and then you use it, and then does the holy spell. So that same idea is how the magic items work in your Sword City. However, each time you do that, you have a very high chance of causing that item to be cursed. And when an item becomes cursed, it can't be used again until you exit the dungeon to purify it. So the goal here is to get the maximum value out of these magical items, which is done by using Trick 2. So while for the most part, if you were to use a magic item, most likely, if not the first time, then the second time you use it, it'll almost certainly be cursed. One of those 2 times. If you can get more than 2 without cursing the item, then that's really lucky, because I was constantly having my items get cursed when I would try to use them regularly in dungeons. So what Trick 2 allows you to do is essentially get free party heals or free large enemy assaults going without the need of consuming MP. And the only requirement is that you just happen to have a bunch of magical items just sitting in your bag, which you almost certainly will. That's just the way this game is. You're going to have a lot of items that you're constantly hoarding in your bag because you just don't feel like going and selling them all or putting them in storage. And because that's how I was playing the game, and I was getting tired of the grind of, now I need to go and empty my bag because I have all of these items that, are useful, but I don't need them right now. They gained value in holding on to them, because now I could go and just go, okay, I'm going to use this heal earring to not fully heal, but to partially heal everyone in my party 3 times. And while it will guaranteed be cursed, as you see here, it's still great value. And the reason I have it equipped is because it's just easier access if you have it already on. Then from Dancer, we go into Fighter, and as with my other builds, we went to 13 Fighter for skill token and for Invincible Heart. That's the value that Fighter gives any class that you go into it, because being able to survive the death blow in a game that has endgame bosses that will hit you with death blows is very valuable. And of course, we come to the end of the build, which is Cleric. So why is it that we want to start as Cleric and end as? So as I said in I think it was my tips and tricks video, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned it in my Red Mage video as well, having access to Holy Weapon and Magic Weapon is more important than just about anything in this game. It doesn't matter what healing spells you have access to. It doesn't matter what magic spells you have access to. If you don't have characters in your party that can make your fighters capable of hitting enemies for damage, then you're going to have a really bad time with it. You go into a dungeon, fight a bunch of slimes. You don't have a character who can use the magic weapon skill to make it that everyone can actually hit the enemy and do more than 1 damage, then it's going to be entirely up to whichever character is capable of casting spells. Which, if a character is capable of casting spells and they don't have that means that you purposely built them that way, and that was a bad idea. But for that reason, we start on Cleric and end as Cleric because we have access to Holy Weapon the entire game. Go from Cleric into Wizard, so that way, even when our Wizard didn't have his Wizard stuff going on and was experimenting in other classes, we, no matter what, had access to Magic Weapon. Then we go back to Cleric, so that way, that never changes. The role of this character, always have access to those 2 skills, and if really needed, heals. But thanks to those Devils in Wizard, you also can multi-heal and multi-buff the party at any point. We can multi-slow the enemies if we want. We have access to all the different force spells to fully dungeon buff our party. And of the highest importance to me, after making sure that you can actually deal damage to an enemy, Holy your magic weapon, having access to Holy Shield is so incredibly important. Holy Shield is a damage shield that affects the entire party, and it is very effective. And the higher level the Cleric, the more damage it can absorb. And it can absorb way more damage than you'd think it would. So while the role of our Paladin is to protect our characters, that role is specifically for once the Holy Shield fails, which in most encounters, it will not. most encounters, that shield will stay up for the entire round, absorb all the attacks, and for the most part, our paladin won't even be doing anything. The medic will be handling things themselves as far as the defensive portion. That's why, to me, the two most important builds out of everything I've shown are the paladin and medic, because they are just so incredibly useful as far as keeping your party up. Because to be honest, if my red mage, my assassin, my samurai, or my fighter gets hit, they're going down. They aren't built to take a hit. So making sure they don't get hit is the entire reason I built these characters the way they are. And this medic is at the top of the class when it comes to keeping everybody alive. Now, there's no guarantees on that, because in the end game, actually, I keep saying end game. In the post game, end game means something else. In the post game, but after you already saw the credits and you do the post game stuff, these characters will stay up. This is a character that will survive along with the paladin, but they will survive alone. Because those bosses, they will get through that shield and they will get hits off on your squishies. Your squishies will perish. There is nothing you can do about that, but they're not going to get your paladin or your medic. They're going to stay up. They're going to stay strong. And if you want to, you could waste your time sitting there for 2 hours just watching your paladin and your medic stare down the boss that killed everybody else in a complete stalemate, because there's nothing they'll be able to do to kill your medic and your paladin, and there's nothing that your medic or paladin can do to kill that boss. There's nothing you can do. Absolutely nothing. But unfortunately, as any RPG made by Japanese developers go, luck plays far too large a role when it comes to enemy behavior. So if the boss decides they're just going to go full genocide every round, then it's just zero miss all over again. That's the medic build. I hope that if you decide to play Stranger Sword City, you definitely use a cleric in some capacity. Even if you choose not to go medic, definitely bring a cleric with you no matter what. Their skill set is just too important for the way that this game works, and hopefully they'll keep you safe as you make your way through. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great day.